From the 5th to the 10th of August, the course Project Implementation to Optimizing Gender Outcomes in the Economic Development and Reform, (OPS4 Reform) was held in Ninh. This short-term course will help middle-level managers, including men and women, of government agencies and key partners of the Australian government in Vietnam to promote gender equality initiatives in the process of project implementation. After this course in Vietnam, those trainees will come to Australia for intensive study in 2 weeks at the end of August. They will learn modern methods and techniques to effectively integrate gender equality throughout the project management and implementation process, as well as the systems in which they work. Upon returning to Vietnam, the trainees will apply the knowledge and experience of gender integration in the programs they undertake. Through the Australia-Vietnam Economic Reform, (OPS4 Reform), the Australian government has funded over $6.5 million Australian dollars to support economic reform in Vietnam. This program aims to improve the business environment. At the same time, the program will provide Vietnam with an additional 1 million registered private enterprises by 2020, increasing the proportion of women-led businesses and boosting employment growth in the private sector.
Greetings from Vietnam on VTC10 Net Việt. In our program today, we are going to talk about the support from Australia to Vietnam in optimizing the general outcomes in economic development and also economic reforms. And the guest speakers in our program today are Dr. Nikki Edwards and Julie King, the specialists from Australia. So thank you for joining us. This time coming here to Vietnam, what impresses you the most, especially when you are talking and meeting up with the Vietnamese trainees?
I think all of the participants from the economic reform sector are very keen to be here. They're very happy to be here. They're very interested in thinking about gender equality. So we are working with people that want to be engaged. They are good critical thinkers, and they have lots of passion to learn more.
I've been impressed by their commitment to learn. Why they have come has been quite inspiring. They are very switched on, they're very bright and very keen to learn and make a difference. And I think for gender equality, having people that are committed to change is vitally important.
How do you think that economic development and economic reforms have a role to play in promoting the gender equality and also women empowerment?
I think if we look globally, we can see that when women are involved in politics, in economics, and more generally in all parts of citizenship, we see a shift in the well-being of the country in general. So it is vitally important that women are involved. It is a human rights imperative that women are involved as well.
For me, gender equality recognises that women make up nearly 51% of the population. And therefore, if we are truly to have an inclusive society that values everyone, women need to be involved in decision making. So for me, gender equality is about equal status, sharing power and sharing decision making. So of course, if you think about gender equality in that way and you think about economic development, which is about the well-being of any country in the world, women need to be involved in participating in decisions around economic reform and economic development.
So in Australia, what is the role of gender equality and women empowerment in economic development and also economic reforms?
We think it's really important to acknowledge that gender equality, parity between women and men in regards to how much they earn, participation in social enterprises, participation in leadership, we haven't got it right in Australia either. This is a journey that developed and developing nations are working on. So coming here to Vietnam is not us coming as experts to tell Vietnam what to do. We are coming to share some of our initiatives, some of our ideas, and work with Australian experts and Australian knowledge to see whether that is relevant for Vietnam. So we're not the experts are actually the participants we're working with.
There is one interesting content in the workshop that I find is about finding out who we are and who am I. So is that the first thing that we should know first?
Yes, this is something we've spent a lot of time with the participants with in the first couple of days. It basically rides on the idea that all of us live in society that's very busy. And because it's very busy, we are time poor. And because we are time poor, we tend to run on automatic. We tend to do things without thinking about what drives our behaviour. And there are two key things that drive our behaviour: our feelings about issues, our feelings about gender equality, or our thoughts about gender equality. So our cognitions or our thoughts combined with our feelings, and that influences our behaviour. So if we don't spend time with participants thinking about what we think about gender, what we think about families, what we think about the relationships between men and women in public and private spaces, so our thoughts and ideas to drive our behaviour, we can't even begin to think about strategies for economic reform around gender equality.
I think for any participants that we work with, and Nikki and I have worked with many different cultures across the globe, when we ask this question, it is very difficult for people to reflect on themselves, because we're asking them to look at their values, their beliefs, and how that plays a part in how they interact both between genders and how they then play that out in the workspace. It can be very difficult, because values and beliefs are something that we hold very deep, and to question those is extremely difficult. But if we don't do that, we cannot change our behaviour. And we often do things that we don't realise that we do. We are very unaware sometimes of the language that we talk about, and language can be quite discriminatory. It can hurt, it can put people who are less empowered to feel, we can make them feel discriminated against. So we need to be very aware of how we act, how we talk, how we interact, and to do that we really need to reflect on ourselves. We also do this because we all need to be on the same page.
The 22 trainees are mid-level managers, including men and women, from the Central Economic Commission, Economic Committee of the National Assembly, the Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry. They have been working together and exchanging information, and at the same time offering solutions to promote gender equality as well as optimizing gender outcomes.
Khi chúng tôi đến với khóa học thì chúng tôi nhận thấy được những kiến thức mà mình có trước đó nó chỉ là những cái thông tin mà mình thu thập một cách riêng lẻ. Và cái điều mà chúng tôi cảm thấy rất là vui mừng khi đến với khóa học này để là chúng tôi được nhận thức một cách đầy đủ, một cách sâu sắc về những cái kiến thức lý thuyết, cũng như là có được định hướng mình phải hành động như thế nào, và mình sẽ xây dựng những cái kế hoạch hành động trong tương lai cụ thể để ứng dụng vào cái công việc của mình.
Hiện nay thì mình đang công tác tại Viện Chính sách và Chiến lược Phát triển Nông nghiệp Nông thôn, thì cái công việc của mình là tham gia tư vấn cho các cơ quan quản lý nhà nước về hoạch định chính sách. Thì khi mà mình tham gia cái khóa học này thì mình có thể mình nhận biết được thêm những gọi là mình có những cái nhận biết, và mình muốn đưa những cái hiểu biết và những cái gọi là lồng ghép về giới vào trong cái hoạch định chính sách.
Gender equality is a top priority in the bilateral cooperation for both Vietnam and Australia. Through this course, Australia will support Vietnam to achieve the objectives of the National Strategy for Gender Equality 2011-2020. The main objectives of the strategy, including support to women in leadership, economic empowerment, and women's safety, are also priorities for the Australian government.
In your opinion, what is the role of men, and how can men contribute to gender equality and women empowerment? And can you share with us some efforts to engage men in this endeavor?
You know, Nikki's mentioned before that women are a little bit more than 0.5% of the population globally. We can't empower women unless the other half of the population comes along with us. So we've looked in the past about how we empower women, and when we've just looked at empowering women, and it hasn't worked, because we need to bring both men and women together in this journey, because there are benefits for both men and women. And we need men to step up. We need men as role models to inspire other men in order to be able to create change, because there'll be no change if we only empower half the population without thinking about how men react to that.
I think sometimes people have the wrong idea about gender equality, and they think it is somehow anti-men or women alienating or being unhappy with men. Seeing men as the problem. That is so incorrect. That is the wrong way of thinking about gender equality. Really, it is about men and women working together to create solutions to achieve parity in income, parity in decision making around the home, parity in terms of leadership and participation in decisions in the community. Women and men together create the answers.
So, in your opinion, what can the government of Vietnam do in order to effectively implement the policies on gender equality and women empowerment?
I think that we have the same problems globally. Here in Vietnam, in Australia, in Norway, in parts of Africa, it's the same problem. We don't talk, we don't discuss, we keep so many things hidden. If we look at domestic violence, nobody wants to talk about it. There is shame, that women feel shame, men feel shame. It's about having open conversations and sharing, and this needs to be done globally, not just in Vietnam. We have a lack of conversation around the world in many countries, and every country shares very similar problems. It's not that one country does worse than another.
The participants in this course will be coming to Australia in 2 weeks for training. So what experience that Australia will share with Vietnam in optimizing the gender outcomes?
Well, we actually have a very exciting program for the participants when they come to Australia. We have people from the Australian government and from the Queensland government who will share their aspects of what they've done within their workplace. We have some very strong women. We have a great panel that will discuss ideas around social entrepreneurship. So there's lots of exciting bits for them to actually learn. And it's not just about you know, we do this really well. It's also about the problems that Australia has faced in order to move forward. So we don't have everything perfect, as Nikki has said. We still have a ways to go. And I'm sure in the process of the course, we will also learn from our Vietnamese participants about what great initiatives are happening in Vietnam as well.
What is your expectation for the efficiency of this course to the Vietnamese participants?
What we saw from our first lot of participants, so we did the transport sector first, was a group of people who will be great role models within their workplace and at home as well. It is too early to say what change will happen within their workplaces, but both Nikki and I are very confident that they were very passionate and that they will be great role models.
Once again, thank you for joining us and for your sharings today. And that's all we have for this episode of Sang Vietnam today. For comment and feedback, don't hesitate to write to us at sangvietnam@netvietttv.net. Thank you for watching and goodbye for now.